Welcome to Vertical Football, and this is the 5 things we learned. Yeah, Senegal 1, France 3. Yeah, it's the World Cup is getting better as the day goes by. I think I enjoyed this one. The game didn't start out well as we expected it to be. France were sloppy, Senegal were sloppy. It took 65 minutes for that match to produce 1 goal, and then in the end, 25 minutes plus 6 minutes at a time, they scored 3 goals. What's your overall thought about the match?
Yeah, I agree with your point in terms of it was a very cagey game. We're surprised that it could even get 4 goals in that game. Really.
I'm surprised.
But I think when the brilliance of players like Mbappe, Olise actually made it to be like that. But I think all in all, it ended up being an exciting game. There were more exciting moments than for the first 60 or 65 minutes. Yeah. So I think it was a very good game at the end.
Yeah, so let's have a discussion about the midfield, because I think there was a whole lot of problem in the midfield, most especially from France, because we later found out in the game that it was kind of like the same sequence that got them the first goal and the second goal. So please just walk us through that sequence.
Yeah, so the midfield, I think there were obvious profile mismatches in the midfield, the way I saw them. For example, when you are using because the way the structure was for France, for most part, it was a 4-4 in terms of the likes of Doué, the likes of Dembele would want to push up in a 4, while you now have the midfield 2 of Tchouaméni and Rabiot. So and you can see that, for example, the decision of making Tchouaméni to become the deep line playmaker didn't yield anything. It was it was just okay with the ball, just simple with the ball. There was no innovation, as I like to call it. There was no innovation on the ball. And also we could see Rabiot at a certain point was asked to push up, which I believe Rabiot would have maybe better to help in that deep line role than maybe Tchouaméni. So there were profile mismatches. Then also another mismatch was the fact that even when they was 4, but sometimes when they are trying to see on the play, the likes of Dembele would drop back a bit from Mbappe. Mbappe would be the lone striker, drop back, and Dembele would be like the number 10. And Dembele was caged there. He didn't have impact there. And I think those are the things that affected them. So they were looking for how they could get into those tight spaces of Senegal in the first half. But we saw at the beginning of the second half, there was a tactical switch from Deschamps in terms of Olise. Was not
going into the number 10 role.
Because what we saw in the first half was Olise was running through the half spaces, was coming out to make those run through the half space. Right. We saw also the Siri Doué was coming into the half space or into the center. But we later saw that Olise in the second half was asked to have a more
dominantly stay in the center.
And I think when he got to that center zone and where the midfield was able to now pass to him directly, those piercing passes and final passes started occurring. And so you could see that it was just a matter of time, because the passes were slick, were good, and fantastic one. Very, very innovative pass from him to Mbappe and scored. I think the second goal, so you can see, and I think that's one of the things I think that France needs to work on, in the sense of you cannot always do those kind of high penetrative long passes into the space every time. So you need to develop your game in such a way where you can be able to play inside the pockets and have a shorter chance. But I think they had difficulties, and I think they were able to find solutions to the brilliance of Olise.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that also made them suffer that I saw in the match in the midfield was the distance between the starting line of the play and the midfield itself. I think it was too much. So you would need somebody who not necessarily only know how to play the pass, but somebody who has the balls to want to punch the pass through. And I think they suffered from that. So let's look from the Senegal's perspective. What do you think actually dragged them down in this match?
I think Senegal, first of all, I have to praise them in the sense of there is a raw athleticism of this Senegal side. These guys are athletes in the original sense of it. I think most of them will do very well in other sports in terms of running.
Definitely.
They are very athletic. And I think that for most part of the game, even up to the end of the game, you could always see that Senegal had the ability to progress the ball. They had the necessary technique to move the ball,
carry the ball up front.
But whenever they get to the end zone, it's either offside, it's either wrong pass, it's either the wrong decision. So they just had those wrong decisions, and I just felt that really hampered them. The decision of the manager not to start Ndiaye, shocking. But I just felt that they just needed, and they had some good chances. For example, there was a ball that came from the left to the right, and simple is things like the choice of the foot to use, and I think that's Ismaïla Sarr.
Ismaïla Sarr.
Ismaïla Sarr, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, crazy. You can't be using your right foot in that situation.
Yeah, just use straight and send it to the far post.
So I felt those decisions, I think they would have to analyze that game and say that, yes, it's a France side. Yes, nobody expected Senegal to win the game, even though we know that yes, Senegal will give them a tough match, but nobody expected them to. But I felt that if Senegal had been clinical in those moments, they could have either gotten a draw have been different or won the game.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that, because I think as much as I was expecting France to be the dominant side, we saw in the match that the reality of the match was Senegal had the opportunity to come into the game and even take the lead at some point in time. And like you have rightly said, I think Ismaïla Sarr was way below his own level, and even somebody like Nicolas Jackson gets chances where it's just set your foot right and get the tap in. So all of those kind of things, I think they struggle to do that, and not even using Ilman Ndiaye just cost them a lot, because he's that kind of guy that when he gets into the final third, if he's not finding somebody to give the right pass to, he can take shots by himself. He can do a whole lot of things. So I think they will just need to go back and reassess their decision and all of those things. So let's go into the third thing. And
so the third thing is, tactically we saw a lot of asymmetric build-ups and asymmetric shapes from both teams. I think sometimes it's difficult to understand what are they playing on the ball, what are they playing off the ball. Even though I know that for France, for most parts, it was a 4-4-2 off the ball.
Definitely.
Dembele and Mbappe front, and then the guys at the back, and everything. So, but I feel on the ball, there were a lot of asymmetric. Sometimes we're seeing 3-3-4. Sometimes, you will see a 3-2-5. Sometimes you don't even know if it's a 3-2-5 or a 3-2-2, So it was asymmetric. I think everybody was kind of like cautious. People were not instinctive. They were not instinctive. And a lot of them, you would think they are being up with a 3, but in actual sense, it's not really a 3, because they see how one of the defenders not really progressing upward on the pitch. The defender is staying back closely to them in case of anything. So they
turnover, so it can run. So
for most part, you will not see that it's like a 3.5, not really a 3, because there's one person somewhere. So I felt we saw a lot of asymmetric build up. I felt that, as you said, a lot of lost passes. There was a lot of flow to the game. I think even to the end, you can't really say there was flow. This team has this man, has this ball. They hold it a little bit before the one has created it. So there was no really flow. And I think this is something that those teams need to work on. You need to have a little bit of flow to your game. It was all about, I have the ball, what can I do with the ball quickly? So it wasn't really, but I think it was, at the end, it ended up becoming a good game, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's another thing that I would like to get your thought on in this particular match, because we saw a whole lot of star boys get lost in the game. Somebody like Desiree Doué was nowhere to be found in the game. Dembele nowhere to be found in the game. Even on the flip side to Senegal, Sadio Mane, we did see him in the match. Even Koulibaly was not up to the level that we expected the Koulibaly to be. Like, what exactly can be the factor that can cause this kind of a thing?
For example, the likes of Doué and Dembele is partly due to systems. I think you have to just understand that these guys, they do very well under a particular system. And when you are so ingrained in that system, sometimes they can need a little bit of adjusting to a particular system. Actually, a system that not warrants you to just be in a particular side and try to do things,
your place,
all this kind of thing. So it's really, really difficult for them. And I feel Doué, I think there was a report that he had for most part been playing on the right. That's the Desiree Doué has most part playing on the right for PSG. But today was asked to play on the left to move in. That could have maybe affected. But I understand that the
dynamics. The movement was stiff. Because to be very honest, when you watch PSG, even if Doué plays on the left hand side, you always see him up. You see him everywhere in the front.
It can be fluid. I think that's why I, at one point when I was watching the game, I was like, I think the France Deschamps also has to look at the fact of Mbappe mustn't always play as
a number 9.
That's the truth, because at certain points in the game, he was being wasted playing as a number 9 because there was difficulty for the team to progress the ball to him. And so sometimes you just want a situation whereby, okay, can I do something like Mbappe goes to the wing, maybe Dembele acts as the top 9, maybe Doué comes behind him, maybe Olise. Like you see, it was even the fluidity of Olise that actually brought the chances because And the first half, when he was just asked to do on the right hand side, he was just passing, trying to come in.
Yeah.
But when he was asked, that was being that fluid, coming in, playing as a number 10, going out. So that fluidity really helped and caused problems for Senegal. So I think the France lineup, in terms of the attacking side, needs to be a little more fluid. They have the players that can do that. I think every player can play. Can do something
up front in all of the positions up front.
Even when you look at the people they brought in, Checky, Barcola, they can
switch position up front and they will still get the best out of those places.
I think they have to be more
find a way, Rabbi. So any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a a new trend. I think we're beginning to see that. We saw that at the beginning of the game against France. The Enrique imprint in terms of you start the kickoff and everybody
shoot it forward.
I think that's one thing about football is a popular phrase. They say all football coaches are thieves, and I think there is no my idea.
Everybody just picks something that works for them,
and I think that's a very, very good skill, because I think I saw it in another game again. Or was it Germany? I'm not sure it wasn't Germany. I saw it in another match again in the World Cup where as the kickoff, people kick it to the train and want to press iron. Yeah. I think and that's the beauty of the game in terms of the game is evolving, and I think we saw
definitely
it was new with the PSG. At least it was made prominent by the PSG side, and we need to see other teams are beginning to imbibe on it. But as the champ is imbibing or copying the aspect of kicking it, I think he should also copy the fluidity of the attack. It will help him more.
Definitely. But speaking about that, kicking the ball off, what does it do? What does it do to the mental state of the opponent? Is it like now we are under attack? These people are bringing the game to us and they want to play us and press us intensely.
Yeah, I think I don't really see if it does. Yeah, it's partly in terms of pressing, because already immediately you feel
like the game they are bringing the game to us.
I think that's that feel. But I think it's trying to disrupt the initial plan of, because when a lot of teams or they will observe how do they want to attack. For example, that's why you say that sometimes you see teams when they want to do, they might have said, okay, let us try and attack them on this area. But when somebody comes and say, you have the ball. You were planning that
you were planning something else.
You want to have the ball and we can do something.
So it's not like what should we do now? What should we do now? What should we do now?
What should we not do? Okay, what are we not doing now? So it's like it's like disruption of the plan. And I think that's what people are trying to do in terms of and I think it's also beginning to show the importance of off the ball in football. So people are willing to now say, because at the beginning in a couple of years ago, it would be like, we have the ball for the first few minutes, let's have the ball, let's feel the ball. But now teams are willing to say, you have the ball. Let's not see what you're going to do with the ball. So I think it just shows the importance of the ball. And I think as the game progresses, you begin to see more and more impact in pressing, counter pressing, and the constitutions. I think those are the mainstay of football for the next couple of years. Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for those analyses. So this is the World Cup brought to you by Vertical Football. France 3, Senegal 1. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you have not done that. We will see you some other time. Namaste.